Hello! So today we're taking a look at the Starfighter once again. We are at Tonopah Test Range in Nevada in the United States, and we're going to be using this as our base to do a couple of circuits of the airbase, really to demonstrate the proper circuit technique in the Starfighter, or at least to attempt it. It's quite a difficult aeroplane to fly at the best of times, so flying an accurate military circuit with it is going to be fun. So let's see how we get on, shall we? So let's go and jump inside the Starfighter. Go and put the external power unit on. And then we can look through and make sure we've got anything selected that we want. We don't really need anything on the airplane today. There's lots of tables of information in the checklist. We're not going to need any of that, to be honest. So let's go and come back to here. So we've got power to the aeroplane. First thing we're going to do is go and turn on the beacon lights. So I'm just going to turn off the head tracking for the moment so you can see this nice and easily. And then we're going to start the engines. So it's a little bit simplified. So you start at number 1. Should we listen to this from outside? Sounds good, doesn't it? Okay, the umbilical has come away automatically. So engine is running, so we can remove the EPU and we can get rid of the knee board now, and we'll go and close the canopy. We're not going to need the mirrors. There we go. And we can deal with the rest of the aircraft. So we'll put the external lights on bright. We'll leave them on steady. We will put some floodlights in. It's quite dim in here, isn't it? And we'll go to the front and we'll go and turn on the oxygen supply. Okay. IFF we can put on standby, I guess. Well, we're not actually going to use it, but it's there. There's very much else we're going to need to use for this circuit. We do need to get the inertial navigation up and running though, so we put it on standby for a few seconds. So if you'll notice, looking around the cockpit, the attitude indicator and the compass won't work unless the inertial navigation is running. So you warm it up for a few seconds, then you put it into align mode. And when the mode light starts flashing, it's ready to switch to nav mode. So you just hold on for a few seconds, wait for it to do its thing, there it goes. And then you can flick to nav, and the warning lights go out on the annunciation panel, and the attitude indicator has lined up. Notice you can also line this up with the axis of the aircraft, which is quite helpful. Okay, so we also need to go and switch the mode on the directional gyro to TACAN mode to make it accurate. There is an external program. You can run radar, but I can't see much point because we haven't got anything to shoot, so there's no point tracking anything even. You've got autopilot controls. We're not going to get into that today. We will go and switch the radio over to TRG. That's all fine. Okay, so we're pretty much ready to go. So let me just go and check that everything's working around the aeroplane. So let's try the spoilers. Yep, they're working. Let's try the flaps. So that's flaps and slats for takeoff. And, sorry, that was for landing. That's takeoff position. Okay, let's put them back up for the moment. We're looking good. So let's put the head tracking back on. And give the stick a stir around, give the rudders a stir. Yep, everything's looking good. So come off the parking brake, open the throttle gently, and we're rolling. So you want to calibrate the altimeter as well. So yes, this is the free scenery of Tonopah Test Range. Oh look, it's an SU-27 here. So you quite often get international collaborations to do dissimilar air combat training at Tonopah, because it's the weapons test facility. There's a Eurofighter parked over there. Yeah, you'll find all sorts of things parked in the hangars here. And parked out on the airfield, getting ready to go. There's something exotic over here, look on the right. Don't think we're going to get much of a look at it because we're going to turn away from it, but that's a unmanned aerial vehicle of some description, isn't it? Very cool. So yeah, this scenery is free. It's very, very good, and it helps that the resolution of the area is very high resolution as well. So we're on the runway here. We really shouldn't be, but I wanted to have a look at that UAV. So we'll just backtrack along the runway. Means we get to have a little look at the Starfighter while we're taxiing, doesn't it? It's a gorgeous aeroplane, isn't it? So the main aim of today is to do a more or less accurate pattern into landing in the Starfighter and to follow the numbers basically, or to attempt to. So we'll be doing essentially overflying the airfield on our way in and then following the pattern to come in properly, which will be good fun. It's not often you see people doing it in Flight Simulator, so you often see them doing it in DCS because it's, you know, accepted to do things properly in the military simulator, to do them the proper way. So let's just pull the aeroplane around. Okay, so flaps set for takeoff. Make sure everything is looking good. It is so far. So full thrust and reheat, and indicated airspeed is climbing. Nose wheel steering is automatically disengaged, so we get through about 160 knots and we can start to rotate, and we're up at 200. Gear up. Remember, the takeoff flaps are good up to 300 knots. So then flaps up, come back to about 90% throttle, 95%. So we've just gone through 7,000 up to 7,500 feet. So that puts us 2,000 feet over the ground. So we'll lose that 500 feet on the way in. But we're going to circle around once and then overfly the airfield. So actually it wouldn't hurt to be a couple of thousand feet up, because I know the hills around this corner are harder than we think. So let's come up to 8,000 feet just for this first circuit, and then we can drop into the right height as we come back in towards the airfield. So we're looking for about 145 degrees on the directional gyro. That's here, which will put us on the reciprocal of the runway. So let's just climb those last few hundred feet up to 8,000. Yeah, the Starfighter's a box of frogs. It won't sit at a given altitude very easily. You have to, you know, very actively trim it and fly it all the time. You can see we've lost a few hundred feet there in a matter of seconds. Okay, we're looking better. Just trying to get it trimmed. So we're flying downwind, you can see the airfields over there. So what we're going to do is overfly the airfield, and on our overflight we will come down to 7,000 feet and also manage the airspeed. We want to get down to about 320 knots as we overfly the airfield in the runway direction. So let's start that now. Obviously we can use the spoilers to achieve this if we want, or we can just coast. So I've cut the throttle quite a long way back. At this airspeed it's not going to hurt. So we'll let the nose drop in the turn. We'll lose that 1,000 feet before we know it. So 7,500 feet, we're at 350 knots. So I'm not going to fly directly over the runway, I'm going to fly more over the buildings than the runway on purpose. So I'll fly along the taxiway. Okay, so we've got 7,000 feet. Or we will when I get it under control. And about 320 knots. Look at it diving around. It's a so-and-so, isn't it? It will not trim. Well, not easily anyway. There we go. So we're about on the speed, so we go for takeoff flaps at this point. So obviously that's going to kick the nose in the air, so we can retrim immediately for that. Now we maintain 7,000 feet for the next minute or two. So we brake and just do a constant radius turn. Again, if you've got visual reference points, this will help enormously to do a turn at the right rate. So you can see I'm lifting the nose here accidentally. So we'll take care of that on the way around the turn just by slackening off the back pressure. So we're looking to drop back to 260 knots on the turn. So we've still got half the turn to go. Notice the landscape's actually quite high around here, so we will find ourselves weaving in between the hills to do this here. It's a little bit unrealistic in that regard. Or I may end up a little bit high on purpose. Okay, so you're looking to get back to 240 knots. So there's our 145 degrees reciprocal. Hold the 7,000 feet. So on the downwind, and you can see the airfield over there, on the downwind you're looking to get to 240 knots, at which point you can put the gear down. So there we go, we're just about to get 240 knots. So gear down. Increase the thrust to account for the extra amount of drag. Look after the altitude as well. Notice the speed is coming off. So we're looking, before we make our turn onto finals, for 200 knots on the indicated airspeed. Notice it's not wanting to climb back, so I'm going to climb back that last 200 feet to get back to 7,000. There we go. So we can go for landing flaps at 200 knots. When we do so, we will lose an incredible amount of airspeed. You can see it's falling off already. So we can increase the throttle to counter that. And then we can begin our turn in. So again, if you know the area well and you have visual reference points, you can descend in the turn, but there's nothing wrong with actually just keeping at this height and doing quite a steep descent in. So I'm going to go no lower than 6,600 feet in this turn. And again, you can just spot over your shoulder, see the runway. The whole point of this is we are already configured for landing. So we're looking for about 190 knots on the rollout onto finals. So I'm going a little bit slow. So I'm just going to open the throttle a little bit more. So you're already configured before you turn for finals. There we go. So now I'm quite heavy. I've got 5,000 pounds of fuel, so that's 4,000 over 1,000, so I need to be 20 knots faster than 160. So I need to be about 180, 190 knots to do this safely. So now we're just getting lined up with PAPI lights, if we can see them. I can't see them very clearly. I'm going to sit up slightly. They are there, yeah, you can just about make out the PAPI lights now. So we're high. So we want to maintain this sort of speed and attitude on the way in. We are being blown around a little bit. Yeah, we're not really on the glide slope, but it doesn't really matter. Not for this purposes of this demonstration. And then we flare. Okay, so not the smoothest landing ever, but I'll take it. So this thing does have drag chutes, so you can pull the chute, and that will slow you down alarmingly quickly. And you can, obviously you're supposed to drag the chute off the runway, which we will do. So I can put the flaps back up. If you were going to do a go around, you just pull the flaps up to take off position, open the throttles, maintain back pressure on the stick, and obviously the aircraft will rotate and get back off the runway, and then you're back off to try again. So this is the one thing that's a bit of a letdown with this Starfighter, is the drag chute will continue billowing around, where in the reality it would be dragging on the floor by now. But obviously you don't leave it on the runway, you wait until you're on the taxiway before ejecting it. So obviously practice makes perfect, and I've only done a little bit of practice so far, so I'm getting better every time I try this. So if you've got the Starfighter, it's definitely worth finding an airfield that you're comfortable with and having a go at it. Whoa, this won't slow down, look. I'm going to go into the grass. Interesting. Just shows how dangerous this aeroplane is. Look, we went into the dust there. So again, once you're on the taxiway, you can eject the chute entirely and it just disappears. And we can go and find somewhere to park. So that just shows you one momentary lapse of concentration, a tiny bit fast into a turn, and you're at risk of either tipping the aeroplane over or just not stopping. It's a strike eagle here, look. Very cool. Should we go the other way? We started on that side, didn't we? Let's have a nose and see what's down here. So we have an F-16, an F-117, empty hangars, another empty hangar, another F-117. Oh, this looks like a nice hangar to park in with a piece of aviation history, doesn't it? It's got a billowing US flag to go with the livery on the aeroplane. Okay, parking brake on. And we can open the canopy. And shut the engine down. So there you go. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Obviously there was a mishap going into the dust on the final turn off of the runway, but that was all my own doing. But yeah, flying these circuits in the Starfighter and doing them properly is great fun. And obviously the more you practice them, the better you get at them. So I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully you enjoyed that, and I'll see you again soon.